let me talk to you first the basic concepts. And I'm sure that most of you would be aware of it, but it could be a revision also. And don't hesitate asking any questions, please, okay? So we go to, first of all, what is demography? Many of you know, but let me tell you that it is a field which is not in isolation. It's something like a statistics, which is used in every field. You know, pick up any subject and it is used, especially if you are doing research. But if you are doing into any of these fields, like sociology or statistics or economics or geography or ecology, and most importantly, health sciences, demography has value for them. So it's not a subject by itself, it's a discipline, or it's a technique which is used by a variety of people, and there are many more who do it. You know, so I'm not going to talk too much, but I would like to concentrate on its utility in health sciences, because two vital issues which have to do with births and deaths, they are the concern of health scientists, or particularly those people who are working in the public health, or any physician. You know, their job is to see that the baby is delivered properly, and the baby which is born lives as much as possible. So there's saving life and delivering or bringing a life to this world. That's a job of a physician, and so that's why, and that's what demography revolves around, as a matter of fact. We call it vital statistics. Vital statistics means births and deaths. So for that reason, it is pretty valuable for people who are trying to be medical students or trying to become doctors, and that's why in many universities in America and UK and other places, that's considered the basic. In the very first year they teach these subjects to medical, and that's what they also do at in a university like Aga Khan. Actually when I came here, and that's what I was told that I have to orient the students towards the value of births and deaths. Okay, and so that's what. So it's very important, and I'm glad that you are taking some interest in it. So what is demography? It's very simple. It's the gathering, organization, analysis, description, and interpretation of data, which relates to the size of the population and the dynamics, which is the change, how it's occurring. Okay. So if you look at, again, so basically, as I mentioned, that how changes occur. Now, changes occur for two reasons. People are born, or children are born, or babies are born, and people die. That's one way of changing the population structure, the dynamics. And that determines the size. The more the people, babies are being born and fewer are being dying, that means the size is increasing very rapidly, which is known as natural increase of population growth. Okay? And then there is another issue which relates to the growth of the population, to which I'll come a little later, because there's another factor which also determines how population is changing, and that also has a lot of public health implications, which is migration. Okay, a lot of people, you see that migrants have certain characteristics. They could be carrier of diseases, for example, from one place to another. Okay, usually people who migrate from one place to another, they are healthier people also. So what could happen if a country or a place which has a lot of people are moving out of there, that means that place could have more people who are less healthy, or those who are sick, they are unable to move out. So you need to have policies related to that. And then some of them who are moving to the cities, mainly they move to the city, they are healthier because they come in search of job, or some of them are sick and they want treatment, and they could be carrier of diseases also. So that is also an important implication of population growth for health. Now let me quickly go through the numbers. It's not for any other reason, but just basically, I'm sure that all of you know about it, that if you look at the history of the population growth, it shows that more recently, especially in the 20th century, that was the time when the population increase has started very rapidly. If you go in the towards the right, that shows that especially if you look at between 1950 and especially after 1950, the population growth jumped to about 2%. And that jumping of the population growth rate was not because more babies were born, but because more people were surviving. After the Second World War, the conditions had improved tremendously in many parts, all parts of the world. Before they improved in Europe and North America and Japan, but after the Second World War, a lot of technology, not only of modern medicine, but also public health measures, which were adopted by the countries, many countries, including Pakistan, which reduced the death rate tremendously. So the number of people started surviving. For example, in Pakistan in 1941-47, the average expectation of life at birth was about 45 years. Now it is 65 years. So it's within 50 years, you have gained 20 years, 50% increase in the expectation of life. And it is mainly because of the public health measures, and I will talk about it when I talk about mortality. And because of that reason, because the growth rate increased, you can see that population went up skyrocketing, internationally. Okay. And that's why if you look at the growth rates, if you break them down into, between different years, you could see that, between 1650 to 1750, or before that, the growth rate was 0.002%. Then it went 0.3%, then 6%, then 1%, then 2.3%. And after 1980, it started declining again. Okay. Now, what is the repercussion of that growth rate? The repercussion is that if the population growth rate is very slow, the population is going to double in centuries. For example, if it is doubling, if the growth rate is 1%, then the population is going to double in about 72 years. About 70 to 72 years. Okay, but if it is more than 2%, then it is going to double in 31 years. Very simple, you divide 70 by the growth rate. The 70 is growth rate, so if it's increasing at 2%, then it's going to double in 35 years. Fortunately, the world population has never reached 3% growth rate, but Pakistan had reached 3% growth rate in the 1970s. And so then it was doubling in 23 years, because 70 divided by 3 is 23 and a half years. So this is the world. So that is the implication, why growth rate is so important. Now, it also has, very quickly, it also has important economic repercussions. The economists, most of economists believe that to sustain, to improve the conditions of the people, the population growth rate should be 3 times less than the economic growth rate. Or, put it inversely, if the population growth rate is 2%, then the economy should be increasing at the rate of 6%, so that you can maintain the similar condition. So if a country is growing at the rate of 2%, as Pakistan is, and its economy is growing at the rate of 2%, that means the conditions has remained the same over years. On the other hand, countries which are growing at a very slow rate, China is growing less than 1%, 0.7 or 0.5% a year, and its economy is growing at the rate of 10%. That means it's growing at very rapidly. China is growing very rapidly. Another example is Bangladesh, which is growing at the rate of 1.45%, and its economy is growing at the rate of 6%. And that's why when you see that Bangladesh is growing much faster economically than Pakistan is. So it has important repercussion for the economic growth of the economic development. And economic development is not only economic development. According to the World Bank, they say that economic development has important impact, a very, very significant impact on infant mortality rate. Higher the economic development rate, lower the infant mortality rate. And they say that infant mortality rate is not only an indicator of health, it's also the indicator of economic development. So if you look at infant mortality rate in Pakistan, which is 75 per thousand live births. If you look at Bangladesh infant mortality rate, it's 50 per thousand live births. So if you look at Iran, the infant mortality rate is about 20 per thousand. So its economic development is much faster. If you look at Japan, the infant mortality rate is 5 per thousand. And so Japan has a very, very strong economy, so has South Korea and Singapore and many other European countries. So it's very important that there's a strong relationship between economic development and health. Okay, it's a chicken and egg relationship kind of. You know, if you want to reduce your infant mortality, the country has to develop, and if the country has to develop faster, then the population growth rate has to go down. So that's it's a very strong relationship research has shown.